to explain, for instance, a husband to a wife, or vice versa. It is very often the case that an introvert marries an extrovert for compensation, or another type marries the counter type to complement himself, for instance. It is something funny about intuition. I will tell you a little story. I had two patients. The man was a sensation type, and the woman was an intuitive type. Of course, they felt attraction. And so they took a little boat and went out to the lake of Zurich. And there were those birds that dive after fish, you know.
Yeah.
And then after a certain time they come up again, and you can't tell where they come up. And so they began to bet who was the first to see the bird. Now, you would think that the one who observes reality very carefully, the sensation type, would of course win out.
Yeah.
Not at all. The woman won the bet completely.
Yeah.
She was beating him on all points.
Yeah.
Because by intuition she knew it before.
I see.
See? Now, how is that possible? Well, sometimes, you know, you can really find out how it works. Intuition is a perception by ways or means of the unconscious. That is as near as I can get. For instance, you also can have intuitions, and that constantly happens, in our jungle called a city.
Yeah.
For instance, once I had a patient, a young woman, about 27 or 8. She came to me because she couldn't hear the step of her feet anymore, because she walked on air, literally.
Yeah.
She couldn't hear it, and that frightened her. And when she came to me, I asked her for her address. And then she said, oh, pension so-and-so. Well, it is not just called pension, but it is a sort of pension. And it is, I never had heard of it.
Yes.
I'm curious, I never have heard of that place. Well, it's a very nice place, he said. Curious enough, there are only young girls there, very nice and very lively young girls. And they have a merry time. I often wish they would invite me to their merry evenings. And I said, but they amuse themselves all alone. I said, oh no, there are plenty of young gentlemen coming in. And they have a beautiful time, but they never invite me. It turned out that it was a private brother.
Yes.
And she was a perfectly decent girl, you know, of a very good family. Not from here. She had found that place, I don't know how. And she was utterly unaware that those were all prostitutes. I said, for heaven's sake, you fell into a very dark place. You hastened to get out of it. You see, that was her sensation.
Yeah.
You see, she didn't see reality.
Yeah.
But she had hunches like anything, and they came off.
Yeah.
Ever feel like explaining emotions to someone feels impossible, as though you speak a different language? Things or feelings that seem obvious to you seem incomprehensible to others, and you can't tell whether they are trying to ignore these facts that you bring up, or if they are truly oblivious to the things you grasp easily. In a world that runs on lies, vision is a curse, and feeling deeply in relationships as an intuitive introvert can be both a blessing and a curse. Some people fall in love with what they see. Intuitive introverts fall in love with what they sense. They see patterns in your words, feel the emotions behind your silence, and notice the parts of you that even you've forgotten. Carl Jung called intuition the ability to see around corners, to perceive meaning beyond the obvious. And when this is paired with introversion, a deep inward focus, it creates a lover who craves emotional depth over everything else. But here's the thing, their greatest gift in love can also be their greatest frustration. For many intuitive introverts, getting into a relationship is not simply about finding someone attractive or enjoyable to be around. It's about finding someone who resonates with the values and passions that make them feel alive. Carl Jung noted that intuitive types are constantly scanning for meaning beneath the surface. This means they are drawn to people who not only understand their worldview, but also share the deeper ideals that give life purpose. It's not enough for someone to be pleasant company. There needs to be a sense of alignment in the things they hold dear and in the pursuits that make their eyes light up. Because of this, they often find it hard to connect in casual dating environments where conversation rarely moves beyond surface topics. While others may feel satisfied building a relationship on shared routines or light entertainment, intuitive introverts are looking for someone whose inner world they can explore and who wants to explore theirs in return. As introverts, they also have limited emotional energy to give. They guard it carefully, unwilling to pour themselves into relationships that don't feed their deeper needs. This self-protection can make them seem reserved or even hesitant, but it's because they know how exhausting it is to stay in connections where their true self has no place to breathe. What makes it even more challenging is that their quiet, observant approach is sometimes mistaken for disinterest. In reality, they're simply taking time to notice the subtle signs. The way someone speaks about what they love, the values hidden between their words, and whether their joy comes from the same places. Once they find that rare person who shares their inner compass, their heart opens fully. But until then, they'd rather walk alone than settle for a connection without soul. They're not satisfied with just being together. They need to feel understood at the core of their being. When that's missing, they don't just feel bored, they feel lonely in the relationship. Another hidden frustration is when their feelings or deep perspectives go unacknowledged. Jung believed intuitive types often see truths others overlook. They connect dots between the past, present, and future in ways that aren't always obvious. When they share these insights and get met with indifference or dismissal, it feels like a door closing on their soul. Imagine this. You share with your partner how a childhood memory shaped your fear of failure. You open up, expecting understanding. But your partner changes the subject, saying, "You think too much about the past." To them, it's no big deal. To you, it's crushing. It's not about agreeing with his perspective, it's about honoring the courage it took to reveal it. Small talk isn't evil, but for intuitive introverts, it's a diet of empty calories. It fills time but doesn't nourish the heart. They crave conversations that lead somewhere, where two souls meet, not just two voices. Without this, they can feel emotionally malnourished, even in a committed relationship. Being in an environment that only values success, money, and practicality can feel like living in a room with no windows. For intuitive introverts, such a world can feel painfully restricting, because their inner life runs on meaning, not just measurable outcomes. Yes, they appreciate stability and responsibility, but if there's no space for dreams, emotions, and deeper truths, they begin to wither inside. Carl Jung noted that when one function dominates, like thinking about efficiency or material gain, the other functions, such as intuition and feeling, get pushed into the shadows. For intuitive introverts, this imbalance is exhausting. It's not that they reject ambition, it's that they want ambition to be aligned with purpose. They long for conversations that explore the why behind the goal, not just the numbers that define it. In love, this means they crave a partner who values emotional and spiritual growth as much as material security. Here's the beautiful paradox. The very depth that can make love hard for intuitive introverts is also what makes them extraordinary partners. Their depth means they don't just love you for who you are right now. They love you for who you're becoming, for the parts of you you've yet to discover. They have a rare ability to see the golden threads of your potential long before you notice them yourself. They notice the little things, the slight change in your tone when you're holding back a worry, the subtle pause before you share something vulnerable, the way your eyes light up when you talk about a dream you secretly think is impossible. To others, these might seem like fleeting moments. To them, they're signposts pointing to the real you. They remember what matters to you, not just the big milestones, but the small, quiet preferences you've only mentioned once. Your favorite childhood snack, the song that always makes you cry, the reason you stopped painting years ago. And when the time is right, they bring these details back into your life as a way of saying, "I see you and I remember you." Carl Jung believed that the intuitive function helps us see potential and meaning beyond the obvious. In relationships, this means intuitive introverts often become mirrors, reflecting back the strengths, values, and beauty their partner has forgotten to see in themselves. And this is why, despite the frustrations they face, loving an intuitive introvert can be one of the most life-giving experiences, because they don't just share a relationship with you, they share in your becoming. So what can intuitive introverts do to turn relationships into a source of ease and deep connection? For intuitive introverts, one of the keys to making relationships easier is learning to bridge the gap between their rich inner world and the outer world of connection. The first step is communicating their depth early on. Many intuitive introverts wait for the other person to discover who they are, but that can leave potential partners guessing. By sharing their passions, values, and the things that excite them, they give others the chance to connect on the same wavelength from the start. Remember, only you truly know the full depth of who you are, so it's unrealistic to expect others to instantly recognize and appreciate your introspection from the very beginning. Second, they can practice starting with small doses of openness. Jung observed that growth often comes from balancing our natural tendencies with their opposite. For introverts, this might mean occasionally stepping out of the comfort zone, initiating deeper conversations, expressing feelings sooner, and allowing themselves to be seen before trust is fully established. Third, they should seek environments where depth is welcome. Joining communities, groups, or activities that center around shared passions makes it far more likely to meet someone who resonates with their worldview. When they're in spaces that already value meaning, conversation naturally flows beyond small talk. Similarly, in corporate or work settings, it's rare to find the kind of deep, introspective connection you long for. So don't be disheartened if it feels absent there. Lastly, they can let go of the idea that connection must be instant and perfect. Deep bonds take time to build, but openness and curiosity along the way can turn unexpected encounters into lasting relationships. By allowing others to meet them halfway, they create space for the kind of love that nourishes both soul and heart. Jung believed that the intuitive function helps us see potential, and in relationships, that ability and compassion leads to a fulfilling and strong relationship that lasts a lifetime.